Yeah, I don't know what time it is. It's getting probably close to around 5:45 a.m. today. I think today's what January 17th, 2023. Anyway, yeah, I was thinking about something because um, I was thinking about the memory minus factor being on 35 about memory and certain things about all that. But anyway, yeah. So in any case, I was thinking about the data foundry and it being in marathon oil and certain factors involving like world history and Marathon Oil and the band Rush. Uh, Rush has a um, compact disc. Well, actually, a song Marathon. Any case, so like Marathon Oil out off of San Felipe when it was there. Okay, I was going to like the Art Institute and Data Foundry. It was up in a tower of power. Where Marathon from that location is at now, I'm not real sure. Or its connectivity with the big three, um, identified as like oil, or really something about, in my mind, something about the maybe Mercedes Benz for real. And I was thinking about, something about the three um, grades of public education, being sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, being um, what seemed to be the flag day, the flagpole thing about the ultimately getting to like what I see in my mind is like June 14th, 1992, like a flag day, yeah, baptism, really, truthfully so. Even getting to, once again, the book, Psychic Warrior, America's Foremost Psychic Spy, and the cover up of the CIA's top secret Stargate program. The thing with this is that really I was thinking about quite a bit, and I was going to the Center for Advanced Legal Studies, studying to be a paralegal for a short, brief time, and during that time I completed like 9 courses of law towards, really just a certification. But in any case, I spent like way more time, like years, like phenomenally far beyond really, even classroom time, really, truthfully so, and in my interest past um, um, the June of 1992, they're really getting real serious in a way about the studying linguistics and alphanumerics and that direction with like virtually everything I had already been involved with in my interest in direction and capacity, in any case, so like I was thinking about a center point energy and like Brazoria being 90. Okay, I'm in Pearland, Texas, and the thing of it is that Brazoria being like 90 and like a 90-degree right angle. And I was thinking about the Diners Club, because the Diners Club is like 107, like military and quantum and like percentile. And the thing about it is that the percentile is normally giving a real close, and I'm just now thinking about it really, and how close, if not, if it's the exact of the double forward slash of HTTP colon double forward slash, like the percent would normally present. I'm not sure if it's somewhere close to a 22.5. And I'm almost assuming, based upon architecture of certain federal combo, it's kind of like an easement that seemed to be representing almost like, you've heard it before, the federal, state, and local issue, and whether or not if it's really that, but it is the three. And what I'm thinking about, something about the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade being something. I mean, if it's like a chartered district in zone, I mean, if it's like a chartered intellectual duration of only what like seemed to be involving the pastel colors of province and world history being a world class. Predominantly the big deal about, like even the movie, Paul Newman, Color of Money, and some, alphanumerics like world news and like a money miracle, and certain factors involving like a world class, or, ultimately going to a circuit, getting to like Geneva, Switzerland. The thing of it is that through my interest in participation at certain positions involving networking, a lot of cable pulling, a lot of uh, information with different types of mainframes and certain types of seem to be significant as far as like what an end user is at a terminal post, involving network of mainframes as compared to what might be presented maybe in a different way as a VPN. The difference between main um, networking and branching off certain configurations as far as like the design of networking and what the requirements were, during all that. But, it seems to be the thing about the terminology seems to be predominantly, whether it's a degreed or non-degreed issue. Ultimately, it seems to be like we're really whether or not if it's a color code of, the red thing. I like a, simple terminology of like what I see is like the United States Codes annotated and like the New Testament, King James Version Bible, and what that is as far as like you know, like a prerequisite at a federal level of even like, religion and 12 Federal Reserve Banks or, a normal daily standard transaction at the bank, ultimately getting to some idea of what non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization only means as non-degreed, or what international law having fair use um, dictates whether if having fair use of the U.S. dollar is some idea of like governance over, currency and circuit over what would maybe be of other monies, other languages, using English as well geographically in North America as like a region 1 and region 0 of like motion picture representing, the equator or the 90 degree of the one and only latitude being, the longitude thing about the, time zones. Time zones are all involving the longitude, the vertical. Yet the one and only latitude, the equator, is representing, the thought of the 90 degree, the one and only 90 degree about time zones that way. Um, yeah, so like it seemed to be the real big deal about, what I'm thinking about as far as like my interest as a drummer. I mean, predominantly, I mean, really my entire life. I mean, involving with like just listening to what I like, on the radio. It's kind of like a real early age thing that had, went beyond, some persuasion of, you know, um, and what it is now. But the thing is, it's quite a bit going on about that. Um, and ultimately now, what seems to be my thought about Pearl Vision, Pearl drums, and my drum set, Pearl Vision drum set is like really, really the best one that I've had so far. And it's like really good. I was looking at the Pearl Master set, um, but the Vision, it just, is really kind of like, anyway, like I have a Strata Red and I'm looking at maybe getting the blue, if it's like Strata Blue. I'm not sure if it's called a Strata, but if it's ultimately getting to some idea of the atmosphere and the ionosphere, yeah, I'm not sure if it will be anything like Strata just being like the stratosphere. Um, or what the idea about the terminology or syllable in that way. Um, but the blue, I mean, I'm almost thinking that the strata red is something in my mind of like the separation between church and state, of color code of the United States Codes annotated, or the blood thing, and what all that stuff is, and involving just simple terminology and what it is to color code and as far as legal media and deposition that way. But in any case, so I like thinking about that because the Pearl Vision is blue, and I'm trying to place it with my memory if it's a strata. But I'm almost assuming it's going to be the ionosphere type of a terminology. But anyway, I'm actually trying to find it because like here in Pearland, I mean, like it seemed like multinational corporations and certain international banking systems had been rotating. I mean, through Pearland, I mean, it has really been like when I purchased my Pearl Vision drum set. I mean, I purchased it as a 5 piece, and just looking at my laptop and available information. Um, I mean, all kinds of electronics involving music equipment were like rotating, and anything less than $1,000, predominantly of like synthesizers as compared to keyboards, had got frustratingly like an automatic return. And eventually I got like the Yamaha Modi X 61 and the Roland Juno 88. But there's been like a lot of economic factors and like issues like arising. I'm on SSI benefits right now, and all this stuff about the scale model and the map and what seems to be like right now. I'm thinking about like memory master back on 35 and what human capital is to like Austin being capital, human capital, representing terminology even all the way up to the New York Stock Exchange, and investment terminology also in ideas of like a commercial paper representative of transaction of importing and exporting on huge scales, normally involving like the 12 Federal Reserve Banks and the New York Stock Exchange of importing and exporting, or what that is in exchange, or the thoughts of like using other monies of other nations with what its value is, no matter where any idea of like buying or some idea. I mean, if that's really truthfully the reality of like the non-degree, at the highest levels, or if it's like, just whether or not if it's really even the thought of actually being a direct, eternal treasury. And like, none of that's like really the issue at all. But the thing with this is about, as far as like the thought of like even at a degree level, I mean, if it's getting ultimately to, what control is based upon, the brains about it, well then, in any case, so I was thinking about something about Diners Club, being alphanumeric 107. And I'll have to actually make absolutely sure, because I'm just now really starting about something about memory minus facto and that symbolic representation. And I'm a drummer, okay, and I really prefer like Zildjian symbols. I mean, they're it's, okay. It's just really what I personally choose, because through like years of like different has ultimately get it. Plus, it's like made in Switzerland, and a lot of information involving networking has been. Really not funny, but ultimately, the information provided, normally on world news, national, local news about summit meetings in Geneva, Switzerland, or, any connectivity between the B and venue. And it really, if the B and venue, how true it is about certain information is really only probably the only known fact of whether travel has been an issue, or, within, the thought of signal strength based upon, what participation is as a normal standard anticipation, or I don't want to say demographic, but or a control situation that might be considered, maybe whether if it's a known or not known fact, present maybe what a willingness or what would maybe give the impression of like a willing, knowingly, and all that stuff. And in any case, I was thinking about the symbolic representation of Diners Club in, the code blue thing in my mind about the circle with the vertical line. And the 9 degree presenting, what seems to be like right now in my mind of like having the right to assemble. It's amazing, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, and certain combinations about why a U.S. patent is not a copyright, or the thought of litigation even being some idea of like a trademark, or whether de facto involving, the thought of maybe a principle, something of that, of the three. Normally, patents, trademarks, and I mean, patents, copyrights, and trademarks are normally the three that are placed together. And I'm thinking about the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. There, what would be predominantly. I mean, if it just has to be a quadrant of like the Abraham Lincoln hood ornament, Lincoln Continental representing, only a 90 degree, which seems to be the hood ornament. Yet a quadrant of like the tennis court, depending on if it's a singles or doubles game, is really, the deal about the margin on the tennis court. And if it's only representing a quadrant, it seems to be whether or not if that represents the architecture platform embedded in encryption. Well, I have something to say about it. But the thing is that as far as like constitutional law, you have the right to assemble. Me being a drummer, okay, and knowing through my experience that I prefer Zildjian, it being also manufactured in Switzerland. Also where the summit meetings predominantly have been considerable about Geneva, Switzerland, and how high rises in like huge commercial buildings identified, normally engraved like, I don't know if it's always granite for like every building, but predominantly that seems to be, the thing about virtually anything engraved in stone that seems to be, preferred more so than not. But anyway, it seemed to be like something about um, whether or not if the memory going to a Stargate program, I mean, being a huge deal in my mind about the being venue, and how true it is if it's, the thought of like what an ISBN number is to a publication or authority in a way of what that represents at a presidential, executive, and legislative level. I mean, the ISBN number, I mean, if it's ultimately getting to, whether participation is a known or not known fact, or what an ISBN number is as compared to the being venue, and how true that information is. I mean, if it's only an intellectual duration being provided by world news and national news or local news as a being venue, there seems to be like the deal about the 90 degree and the rectangle of the hood ornament of Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln Continental. Then, Lincoln Continental, the word continental is automatically, in my mind, an international financial management thing about, at the front lines of the beachfront, representing, the acronym SAN, or Storage Area Network, or like securities and annuities, and certain factors that seem to be, of LexisNexis and Westlaw, presenting, like international law, and whether or not, how, or when, or where, um, you know, uh, teleprompting or command prompt is a direct source, or not, and if it's going to be only an issue of like internet protocol of making a grade beyond local area network, or the wide. My thing about the wide area network, or the wide world of sports. I mean, ultimately, if it's getting to the 90 degree of a hood ornament, like the Lincoln Continental representing international finance and management, and something in my mind that I had been involved with, as far as um, tech positions involving like networking, a lot of cable pulling, and some startups, and a copier technician, and being around quite a bit of that stuff during that time, involving some startups and configuring like networks, and um, troubleshooting a little bit of a electronic printed circuit board, and stuff like that during that time. But anyway, yeah, but there was like a lot of networking involved, okay? And the thing with it is that as compared to the mainframe, or the thought of like a terminology, it seemed to be predominantly a lot of positions involving administrative, sometimes not necessarily anything other than like on the job, or some idea of experience. And in that way, I was thinking about that because my interest had led to data foundry, and t- uh, wave media, TX wave media, and certain factors involving like data foundry. And I'm just now thinking about it because my interest in music has always been there, and I'm a drummer and singer. I mean, naturally, no matter what. Anyway, I really truthfully have been. The thing with this is that having to write to assemble and ultimately getting to the Geneva, Switzerland, and summit meetings. And my thing about sixth, seventh, and eighth grade seems to be like the deal about the information involving like a world class, a world history involving the color code of the province, or what that is to even like I like the sprite in and the colors of sprite itself being a pastel green, like in my mind, of like the golf course. And whether it's either 2 9 hole or like 118, yet the color of jurisprudence with the black back. Just a little bit of a different, but the colors of sprite being the two. And British Petroleum at the beginning, if my memory serves me correctly, was the same colors as Sprite. Um, and as far as my memory goes, I think it did not involve the yellow. And yellow seems to be the thing about 92 and Pentagon, and Drummer Reserve Reverse, or caution. The thing about the colors of like the traffic signal light, as well as the green and red, which just seems to be in a pastel. The green and red is of like nano units of like night vision, and of the 13 megagraphic equalizer, once again, of the pastel green on an LED digital display is like the measured in nano units, yet of ambience being the pastel green. Or the thought of like hey, the pastel green, or some idea of like ratio of traffic signals, yet the red, the pastel red, um, of resistance. And if you want to consider some idea of ohms, um, or what that means in circuit as compared to what a capacitor would be on a plus side. A capacitor would be more so of ambience than like a resistor of the pastel red, or what resistance is as a standard as 8 ohms normally, and predominantly um, most cabinet speakers involving like loudspeakers and performance of like cabinet speakers, ultimately even like concert venues like the Summit here in Houston used to be, like a 50,000 watt stage full of bunch of power amplification. But anyway, like in any case, so like 8 ohm seems to be like a deal about some connectivity to like the redundant frequency, in the way of RF being 24, the HOA, Homeowners Association, GMAC, and the International Electrical Electronic Engineering being all 24, or the FR and the free, and the connectivity of Texas Instruments and all that. Well, anyway, I was thinking about that because I'd been to Data Foundry, and when I was going to the Center for Advanced Legal Studies, I completed 9 courses of law, and on my 10th course in real estate, I decided to go to the Art Institute for music video business, and involving audio production, television production, and sales promotions, and what it's about. But for a short brief time. But in any case, I mean, it's like 30 feet away from Marathon, right at the corner of San Felipe and Yorktown, and they're at a new location. This is back in the 80s. Okay, this is like the year 2023. And when I was like studying alphanumerics and linguistics to such a level and degree, I mean, it was forming, through years of like process of elimination, or the only answers left by reasoning, or some idea of like some, you know, um, how could it be not be, that, and through years of the process of elimination, and finding more and more explanation and the connectivity, supporting, the reality of that fact on an analytical way. In any case, so like it got to the point of like if the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade during like a Richard Nixon is only representing whether it's a 3 or 6 month before and after, or a 3 month representing even a season. I mean, if it's like a difference between a fiscal and an annual calendar year as compared to maybe only a seasonal change in the way would only represent maybe a fiscal annual other than a calendar year. As like it seemed to be the Richard Nixon thing about either it's three before and after, or what the two is during Richard Nixon. Um, which seems to present, the issue of quadrants, or, the difference between a 90 degree as compared to a telepathic answer of like 180 or 180 degree as compared to, my thought about, the architecture platform embedding encryption that way of even globalization, even, the spherical quadrants of like the globe when it's on the map shaped like a football, or, some idea of like a human anatomy and compatibility, or, the oval office, I mean, for real, okay? And in any case, so like or it even represents a perpendicular spiral in a way of oscillation, not limited to motion cycles per second, but I mean, as far as like a three-dimensional orbital type of deal, I mean, it would actually look like that at some point of, I mean, if it just has to be a freeze frame to represent what that all looks like. But anyway, I was thinking about Data Foundry because they were there at the Marathon Oil, and I think they're still there, although Marathon predominantly was, I mean, the building, the Tower of Power. I'm pretty sure Data Foundry still there, but anyway, they have another location on Greens Parkway. And during, an issue about going through, my thing, like really like 6 months after, I mean, for real, Flag Day, June 14th thing, and representing some idea of like African Americans was like 50 in June in America. Um, and on the 14th of 64, HTTP :// thing about, the American Israel thing about the African Americans 64 or 1964, or some idea of like binary numbers being two numbers of sequencing characterization instead of four, using only two numbers, and like 1964 being winter, and 83, or some idea of like geoprism and geoprison spelled with a Z, being 109 is 110, like a governor's president, or a Robert E. Rubin quarter, or a telepathic, knowing anything about Robert E. Rubin being the United States Secretary of Treasury seems to be like the ultimate bill about light scribe, using the stars for navigation, and some comparability and similarity of the three wise men doing likewise the same, of scribes using that fact of using the stars as like, even back in biblical times, it's like an automatic isometric perception of surface to air. I mean, anyway, and like, using stars, or, stars born thing, or a telepathic birth issue representing the backside of the US $1. In any case, I was thinking about Data Foundry because there were some similarities of what seemed to be, the AI, the Art Institute, or, Data Foundry out on the Greens Parkway. And after going through something, and the memory seemed to be like a real big issue of a location there, and it seemed to be like and the question is it artificial intelligence, that location at Parkway, Greens Parkway, out on the north side of Houston, of like Data Foundry. And there's several locations. There's a couple locations in Austin, and some idea of like Austin and like Houston. And it's kind of, is that the artificial location? Because at first Data Foundry presented the information as SAN software of like international financial management, and through different times of communicating and talking with them, like on the phone, or a memory of like being taken to a specific location during a Stargate program. I mean, in any case, even looking at it as a Stargate program would be, I mean, if memory were like only an issue of television, or some thought rejuvenating, or activating, some thought about, uh, not having an issue about even considering memory an issue at all. But anyway, yeah. So like the thing with this is that I mean, I had asked that question within myself. I mean, I actually talked to them about it. I mean, is that location actually an artificial intelligence or American intelligence, the AI? And I went to the Art Institute being the AI thing. Um, I mean, on their hats and everything. And the one thing about Data Foundry only being 30 feet away from the Art Institute on Yorktown at the time, right next to Marathon Oil, it presents, my thought of like the big three, normally associated with, the big three representing like the oil of Marathon's one, and the other two I'm gonna actually have to think about it. But anyway, it's like the big three, and it's kind of like I'm trying to think about it because it's going back and trying to find the information. I'm not even going to because I mean I went through like years of that and discovered there seemed to be like information that was then available and not a question. It had become really not anything other than frustrating. It got to the point that thoroughly depending on my memory, it had got to ultimately it's going to be that anyway at the point So anyway, so like I was thinking about that because of the Greens Parkway location of like Data Foundry. It seemed to be more and more kind of like just with the appearance of the area. I mean, if that was like the issue of like some transition between like a NRG, um, the football stadium, NRG and the electrical utility and the power. Because as a matter of fact, when Data Foundry was presenting, their website with SAN software of international financial management, it seemed to have changed from what seemed to be what would only be presenting as maybe a principle of power in the form of software of like SAN software of like software engineering and some compatibility, whether or not if solid state's actually some idea of connectivity, uh, between, some idea of like what bandwidth and spectrum might only mean as far as signal strength or what that is in networking that way. And I'm actually having to think about stuff like that, and I'm wanting to because I mean that's what I do anyway when I study alphanumerics and linguistics and quite a bit about legal terminology, geographics, and all that. But in any case, so like Data Foundry had uh, given information that had led to like a change of their website on more of a power side, which had the similarities of NRG involving like geographic information systems and what was in um, Caprock Communications, then turned into the Harris Corporation, Caprock. Now it's Speedcast of Australia, involving VSAT Communications, um, suggesting more so of both, VSAT as well as maritime law. And that's the thing right now where I'm at. It seems to be like the issue between like towing of like shipments entering the ports of multinational corporations and international banking systems, like in the ports in the form of shipments, as compared to what towing is that way, as compared to what would present maybe the thought of like the alphanumerics of transportation being 200, or the pro-life thing about pro Jesus Christ or the Lord Jesus Christ or Secret Service in a way of like a the pro Secret Service, the pro Holy Spirit, and the alphanumerics of the 200-year celebration of America and during the Nixon administration during the 1976 thing about the bicentennial quarter, the snare drummer, and the Statue of Liberty, and the thing about Independence Day ultimately getting to Philadelphia and like Fox 29 News. And I thought about the hypothetical metaphor, for it is written, thing about the Angel 29 Airbank thing about YouTube being the thought, is it a hypothetical metaphor, or is it like the thought of whether manufacturing um, legal mid and deposition is only thing, is it live or memories, or the thought of it seemed to be an issue, like whether or not if anything other than its original um, chronological thing is anything other than that is presented the issue of like hey, is there a question that needs to be answered, and that's my concern. It seemed to be ultimately whether or not if prepaid postage has referred to like what North American Free Trade Act, and what would be presented maybe as whether if the F is taken out of the NAFTA and being NATO, or some exponential placement and position of degree representing what would maybe be the Apple iPhone SE between like an ERISA a statute as compared to an IRA, and the color code, the Air Force One, you know, jet of like the White House and the President of the United States, presenting the same colors of like the blue and the white at like AT&T from like Southwestern Bell. And Southwestern Bell seemed to be like ultimately gets to like a 247 degree of Highway 59, same as the center point like of what Houston is geographically, and predominantly Highway 59 Southwest Freeway. And it seems to be the thing about in my mind of 247 degree all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. What 247 degrees is in my mind, that represents even the thought of like a infinity of the way of like even a song about 805, it's time to rock thing. But in any case, it seems to be like the thing about the all that about 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. 8 a.m. seems to be like the deal about 247 degrees. And the 8 being something, of like perfect 1010 vision in a planetarium or on a zoom lens of exponential quotients of powers of multiplication, like in a planetarium. And using the stars, I mean, like once again, in an isometric way, a little bit more than the thought of like just reading a book and the surface to air thing about, the reality of what isometric is in blueprints of like, actual participation beyond, the academic thing about classroom and what actual participation beyond, the classroom is, in my mind, even as a method of banking in a local and making it great beyond like a local area. Internet protocol of a local area network. And my thing about being on YouTube.com at WadeASV, Pretty Priddy. And I've mentioned, in coordination with like, but what's going on, I actually, have a 192, but it's like what's going on with that. So, I mean, right now I'm like kind of putting that on hold, but that has been something that's kind of like, who's really in control of my, am I having like a webmaster and Wi-Fi manager issue or a VPN of, to be a plenipotentiary and, what the deal is about the, YouTube for real, or, the thought of like a 109 or a governor issue. But in any case, so like anyway, it got to like the point of like sixth, seventh, and eighth grade being during the 1976 uh, Richard Nixon, give or take. I mean, if it's just got to be some idea of a quadrant representing international financial management 3 months before or 3 months after, or what pi r squared is that way, and being like a 6 month instead of a 3 month before and after, totally like an entire year, or some idea of a quadrant on tennis court that way, or the hoodorment like a Lincoln Continental in the way of like um, a quadrant of a rectangle. But I thought about Abraham Lincoln being the thing about the Lincoln Continental, and Abraham Lincoln night vision that way, and anyway, so like I was thinking about the information being provided by NRG as far as like geographic informations and data foundry, because it had transitioned to what was available as like saying software of international financial management to some idea of like NRG presenting co-location as empowered of like stacks, and I'm actually trying to place if the information is really an issue of whether it's a degreed or non-degreed issue of non-gross or non-transferable itemization. There's like the internet protocol, the IP address. I think there's two, maybe three. I'm not real sure if that's the issue between layers and tiers, like in networking and presentation and um, oh god, I'm actually going to have to go by my memory, but I was like really studying Cisco networking, and I think there's what the IP address and I'm not sure if there's two or three layers and two or three tiers, layers of tiers, and there's a presentation, and I'm actually going to have to think beyond the presentation if there's like anything about the what would be representative of destination and networking as like the trunk or whatever it's called, and how true that is. I'm actually going to have to actually question and know for sure before I finish talking about the caboose thing about identifying communications and networking, whether it's going to involve like software or like switching and routing predominantly of hubs, normally more so of hardware. I mean, if it transitions between physical connectivity of like interface connectivity of like whether it's like fiber optics or Cat5 or just regular coax, or what the real deal is about the interfacing connectivity of like the cable itself, or the wireless issue like ultimately getting to the VSAT and space exploration, or something, some idea of like NASA and a bunch of rockets and space shuttle and all that. But anyway, so like yeah, so like I was thinking about that because the transition, what was being made available, and my interest involving like Caprock Communications, and then turning to the Harris Corporation Caprock Communications, and now Speedcast. And my thing about the 9 degree had got to whether or not all the power of like VSAT has been the idea of whether or not there's some symbolic representation of Binder Club and everything that's happened. Me being on supplemental security and SSI, and the acronym SSI, or something like my idea, like how I might as well be the superstar intelligence of a drummer, and get on into the real deal about it, and I mean if it's not the real deal by now, I mean it's one way or the other. I mean, so I'm thinking about that, the International Space Station, the IS, and the International Superstar thing about it. But in any case, I'm thinking about that because of some of the information providing like with network of like co-location representing the thing about the power more so in my mind of NRG, as well as like Data Foundry. And you know, it seemed to be like the big three in the Houston area of like my interest has really truthfully always been Data Foundry, or ICT, I mean TX Wave Media, and like what was in Trap Rock Communications, now Speedcast, are predominantly like the three. But you know, the thing about that, it seemed to be like the memory of like a um, Diners Club, and that symbolic representation seems to be like having the right to assemble, and what a drummer is, to like would be automatic perception as a drummer, some connectivity, just pronunciation as compared to like Geneva, Switzerland, and what a symbol is, and manufactured in Switzerland, being Zildjian, automatically, you know, the Switzerland thing, and the summit meetings, and you know, my idea of like what Abraham Lincoln night vision is to like a Stargate program in a 90 degree of a rectangle, and it's pretty much that being venue identified pretty much in coordination. It seemed to be, you know, the deal about, you know, the flags and the summit meetings and certain factors and involving the being venue, and I mean, if that's only an intellectual duration, how true it is about, you know, it being identified as a rectangle, a flat horizontal rectangle as being venue. I mean, if it's always, I'm not real sure if it's like some idea of like chartering, districting, and zoning idea of like an intellectual duration of only a specific time and place during, you know, really had to be there kind of like thing, or, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, ultimately it seems to be like the deal about whether a world class is only the deal of like world history involving the pastels, and what the history of a television screen ultimately seems to be involving like the pastels and Technicolor, and all that stuff about it. But anyway, yeah, so like I thought I'd include that. It's already going on like 36 minutes and like 49 seconds, and getting real close to 37, and I've been talking quite a bit, but I just wanted to include the deal about um, you know, the Art Institute and the the AI thing with my thought of like the Greens Parkway area of like Data Foundry, and it seemed to be like the connectivity, what seemed to be the difference between like international financial management to some thought of like empowered, you know, somewhere between like geographic informations and VSAT communications, or like even of NASA, as well as you know, NRG involving like a um, geographic information systems and co-location, as compared to what might be same networking more so of like a software engineering and participation that way, more so of like a software as compared to like on-site location, co-location being the power side of the way of what I'm looking at. That's why I'm thinking that way, is because of that fact. But anyway, I just wanted to include that because, you know, my thing about Geneva, Switzerland, and Zildjian, and the summit meetings and being venue and what that is to an ISBN thing. Yeah, and some idea of like a what author authority in that way. Yeah. So in any case, yeah. So I thought I'd include that just for the mere sake of like the delta force being a triangle and all that schematic stuff, as well as like a diners club. Seemingly a 90 degree in my mind is like an empowered like a NRG thing about the center point energy being like a 90 degree, providing the center point of what's involved with like SSI, supplemental security, as well as like SNAP food benefits, or, you know, the Lone Star card, ultimately getting to the isometrics beyond like a memorial of a monument and a Star is Born kind of like thing about representing some telepathic birth on the backside of the US $1 bill, the San Jacinto Monument in the Houston, Texas area. So anyway, I thought I'd include that because you know, the Alpha American 107 being military, or, you know, County Road right here in Pearland, Texas, County Road 107 being like my street, like Mona Street, as well as like this entire like section in this area. I think there's like 6 or 7 streets. I mean, it's been through like through the, you know, the rural route. It's still like a county road as well, but the rural route, the county road, the lane, the street, and, you know, and what was then like a road is now an avenue, like approximately like pretty close to like 300 feet. I mean, why would it be 300 feet right now? It seemed to be like the TriStar thing of like VSAT communications involving some degree level beyond, you know, the thought of maybe what Christian Science is, um, and everything included that way of TriStar. But yeah, and the 300-year tricentennial celebration, yeah. So anyway, yeah. So like I was thinking about that because of quite a bit, you know, beyond the thing about the certain factors of television programming. Yeah. So in any case, I thought I'd include that right now. It's already going on 39 minutes and like 39 seconds. Yeah. So like anyway, I thought I'd include that for now, and there it is, okay? Talk to you later.